Hey, Igor, I've got a process that I have a question about. I wonder if you can help me out.
Hey Jeff, what's your question?
Well, I'm trying to get a communication of when the process is done, or maybe when I have issues with errors, and I can't see how to do this. Can you help me out?
Well, you're in luck here because Genera allows you to communicate to external sources like email, Teams, and Slack messages. So let's dive right into it.
All right, let's get to it on this episode of Genera Gems. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Genera Gems. Today's quite interesting because it's about communication with external sources. And when I mean external sources, things like email, which is pretty standard, and Teams, which can be standard, and Slack, which is very popular these days. And as it when I mention communication, I mean communication coming from Genera about your process and the state that it's particularly in at that moment in time. So I think what Igor is going to show us today is those three instances, Teams, Slack, and email, and how that will work within a process and also within handlers. So Igor, go ahead and take it away.
So we are in our process editor here in our editor tab, and I already created this process called my external communication setup. And as you can see, we have activity nodes embedded within the process. So as Jeff said, we'll first look at how to set up communication within a process, and then later we'll show how to do it in a handler. So let's start with one at a time. So let's start with email. So if I was to open up this activity node, so these are all drag and drop. So all I have to do is find my activity node within my activity node list and just drag this in, and it'll show the same exact parameters. So I'm just going to open up the one that I already have. And as you can see, we have some parameters we have to fill out for our email or for our send email activity node, which is who you're going to send it to. Do you have any other CC or BCC people you need to send this to? Your subject and your body.
Yeah, what's important here on the to and the CC and also the blind carbon copy, you can separate email addresses using commas. So Igor could put himself in there. He could put a comma and put me in there as well. You can put multiple addresses inside those two CCs and BCC parameters. So there's multiples you can add there, not just one.
Yep. So like, for example, I could add Jeff N at readysoft.com. And then I could also add, let's say, support at readysoft.com. So you could add multiple people in either the to CC or BCC. And so, Jeff, how do we actually set up the from? Who or where is Generic going to send this email from?
Yeah, so in that case, you're going to go to your tools menu so you can see where we're actually going to set up the email address. So in the settings section under the tools menu, you can see here we have an email section. Now for us, we just use the standard Gmail exchange. Now for many of the users here, you can also talk with your IT department to figure out what exchange you can actually use and how that can get set up. This is standard information from Gmail. The 587, it could be different for you, and the security TLS. There's multiples there. If you click the drop down list, you can have none, but I recommend you do. But there's other options there as well. And then for the username, this is the important part. The username must be the email address. It's not like it would be just Jeff N or whatever. It has to be the actual email address that you're sending from. And then on the password, that would be the password from that email address. So that's how that works.
So after you've set that up, then you're all good to go to send emails. And then in this case, I'm just going to send a process started because it's in the beginning of my process, and also a process finished at the end for the subject and body. So the next communication is our Teams message. So for Teams, all we have to do is set up a webhook. So here I have my webhook in a variable called Teams webhook, and then we have to set up or we have to input the message. So same with same with the email. I just have a process started, and then at the end, a process finished.
Yeah, and for those webhooks, you can attach that to an individual team, and you have to go into that team and the settings, I believe, and get a webhook from that team. So that will
Mhm.
now become the address or the hook for that channel that you can send that Teams message to.
And the last one is Slack here. So very similar to Teams. We just have to set up the Slack channel webhook. And so we just need that URL. And then same thing, process started and process finished at the end.
Awesome. So
So fairly
we're communicating
straightforward.
here.
Yes, we are communicating. So let's get the show on the road and actually run it. So if I was to go next, next. So we're not setting up our workspace with anything. We're just showing communications. And let's click finish. And it said process has started. So as you can see, the process started. Now we're on our timer. And then it should say processed finish. So now all my messages have been sent. And now let's look at each one of them. So I'm going to go drag over my Slack here. And as we can see, we have an incoming webhook that has process started and then process finished.
Nice.
So that's my Slack. And now let's look at Teams. So Teams, we have process started and process finished. And then finally, there's a lot of jumping around tabs here. This is as expected. We have my email that says process started with the body and the subject line. And then I have the
Yes.
same thing here with my process finished.
Nice. Nice.
So,
And there's a particular advantage, I think anyway, with your going with a Slack or a Teams, where you don't have to set up the individual emails that we had to in the post or the email, start the email, where he had to put a comma and then another email address, comma, another email address. Yes, those are all set up in Teams. So if somebody's a part of a particular team or channel, then they'll get those and you don't have to identify the individual emails. You can send it to the whole team right away. So you know for sure if someone's on that channel or that team, they will get that message and someone in the team can respond to it. The same with the Slack. So everyone can see that message coming out. As opposed to an email, if you're not part of the email chain, you won't get that message. And it's been the individual list that Igor had created initially.
yeah, so that's why we added the Teams in Slack to
Mhm.
increase the visibility there. So now let's
Nice.
see how to actually run it in a handler. So I have another process here. And if we go to the handler, so as you can see, we have 3 error handlers. So if I was to actually go into one of these, so this works very similar to setting up the activity node, the same parameters here. Well, it's a little bit different because we're using a different method for our send email. As we can see, we have different methods, and one of the methods is to send an error email, and all we have to do is send or put the who you sending it to, or any CC or BCC, but we don't have any subject or body because that's going to be created by the error message. So, and then as we can see, the trigger condition up here for this handler is an error. So this will trigger this program or activity node to run when an error occurs.
Nice. Yeah, you're absolutely right because I was going to ask the question of, well, where's the subject matter that I need for this email?
Mm-hmm.
With that method inside this program, that error email, send error email, will actually grab the data from the message itself, from the error. So you'll know what task it is, what's the message itself. And you'll see all this in the actual email once we pull this up after we've launched this process.
Mm-hmm. And then we could see for actually finding the activity node, you just have to browse to it. So there's my send email right here. And
Mm-hmm.
then once I double click on it, then all this will populate. And then same with the post error message. So there is a post, or for post Teams message, there's a post error message method in here. And all you have to do is set up the webhook, which this actually needs to be Teams because we're posting a Teams message. And then here, this is my send Slack message, because you can see we're using the send Slack message program on a trigger error, and then we just have a webhook URL, and then there's the send error message via webhook.
Yeah. And again, for all three of these, the email we showed first, for all three of these, it will grab the same error information and post it to that particular channel, whichever the communication channel is.
So let's run this process, and we'll see. And it's just a simple process. My labware node, it will be located. Let me just show that real fast. This labware node will be located on the on my reader here, and then I'm just reading the plate. So fairly straightforward. But we'll see that if I just go through all these configurations, click finish, that an error occurs because the labware does not have a barcode. So for this reader particular, requires a barcode for it to run. And now if we go to all of our different communication protocols or external communication locations, we could see that for email, we have a subject that say Genera has an error has occurred, and then we see our error details. So it shows us the time, what's the root task, right? So what actually is the error message? Read plate without barcode. What was the task that it was running? So it was trying to read a plate. What batch did it occur on? And then what was the message? So the labware does not have a barcode. So the root
Yeah.
task is the name of the process.
Yeah. And this is everything that gets generated out of those programs in that method. This will grab that data and put it into the message itself.
Yep. And then if we close this down, I like the Teams one. It makes it very obvious that an error has
Yes.
occurred.
When I wrote the program, I made sure that there was contrast in colors. So that's where that came from, actually.
Yep. So same details. So an error has occurred during generic task execution. Give us the time, the name of the process, the activity node that it errored on, the batch, and then the labware, and then the message. So labware does not have a barcode. And then if we finally close this down and go to my Slack, we can see that it has the, let me make this a little smaller. Yep, we can see that it has the same error message. Not as flashy, but information is still there.
Well, I think that might be a part of Slack or whatever the message may be, but it gets the point across.
It gets the point across. Exactly. That's the most important. And so now if we go, we could actually go and resolve this error. So let's say I'm a user and I see this error. Let me put a barcode on here. Let's put ABC. And then I click retry. Now it has a barcode. It's able to read the plate. And now my process finished. So if I had a finished handler with my communication protocols, then it'll send a message saying process is finished successfully.
Yeah, I think that's driving. There's 2 points to drive home here. It's one, we use this in the instrument context, meaning an instrument threw an error because it needed a barcode. We thought it was important to grab that information from the task, which is exactly what an error email did. It grabbed the information from the task, what was the error, what batch, and all that kind of stuff, which was important to know so you knew exactly where to go and how to address it. And then in the context of just communicating in different ways, whatever's most advantageous or what is standard within your organization, you have options to use those. So that Genera provides you those capabilities with those programs. Now, it is important to note that the post to Teams message and the send to Slack are not necessarily shipped from the factory in Genera during an install. But if you do need those, you can certainly send an email to support@readysoft.com, and we would be happy to send those along to you so you could use them in your context as well. All right. Well, that demonstrates a lot that I was looking for, Igor. I
Hmm.
do appreciate your attentive nature on how we can use these communication strategies in different ways, whether it's at a process started, a process has finished, a process has errored. We even have other trigger conditions and handlers. Maybe there's a pause. It depends on how you, the user, want to actually be notified of the status of the software itself. So you can set all those up. Now, that there's one other thing I want to mention here, that if you do have other ideas you'd like to see, we're happy to take those in and put those on our plan. And you can use the email content@readysoft.com for any other ideas you'd like to see or
Hmm.
you had questions about. We can put those on our planning board and generate content from those ideas as well. So we love the customer feedback whenever we get it. So we appreciate that. That'll
Yeah,
do
if you
it
see
for,
anything,
yeah,
yeah,
go
if
ahead.
you
Go
see
ahead, Igor.
anything in the video that you want us to go more in details into, this is why we have this email address now, because you guys could give us ideas on future content.
Yes, and with the video, you can always add comments in the comments down in the comments
Hmm.
section. Be sure to subscribe and click the thumbs up, give us a like there, and click the notification bell because we try to put these out every week. And it's important that if you know that you're getting a new video every week, that you can now watch it. So that'll do it for this episode of Genera Gems, and we'll see you on the next one.